Hi friends! Welcome back to my channel. My name's Jordan and you're watching Criminal Crafting.
To get it right, trying to find some balance in my life.
Hey everyone! Thank you so much for coming back today. If you are new here, thank you for following my channel. Thank you for being here today. If you're a subscriber, thank you for coming back. Today's video, you guys, I'm not very happy. When I heard the news, I went in and told my husband all about it, and I was very heated and very upset because, how do I put this nicely? I feel like it's bullcrap. Gonna use crap over anything else, but I am so incredibly frustrated, and I'd love to hear what you guys think and whether you're just as upset as I am, whether you believe it, whether you don't believe it. I want to have conversations with you guys, so make sure that you comment down below. So today's story is an extension of the Gabby Petito case. So it's the day that they had their trial, right? The Laundrie's lawyer, Bertolino, our favorite lawyer, and the Petito's lawyer went down to get the belongings from the FBI. So the notebook, any belongings that were taken for evidence was given back. So 30 minutes after the trial ended, Bertolino, which everyone's been waiting for this, everyone's been begging for the contents of that notebook, because the notebook was found next to Brian where he took his own life. So everyone wanted to see what was in that notebook. Obviously, we knew that there was a confession that he had been the one to take Gabby's life, but we wanted to know what else was in that notebook, and it's been a very long time of waiting and patiently waiting for it. So to have it released right after the trial, I feel like was a strategic move on Bertolino's part and the Laundrie's part. You guys, I don't know whether I feel like this helped the Laundries in any way. If anything, I feel like it hurt their case. They probably see it as something that's going to help them in the lawsuit, and that's why they released it. But based on the contents of it, I don't know that it helped. Other than Brian saying, please be kind to my family because they've now lost 2 kids. So essentially with this video, I wanted to read the notebook, which is 8 pages long, to you guys, and I'll put it right up here on the screen so you can see what it says as we're reading. It's very hard to read because there were parts of it that bled from water. He doesn't have the best grammar, so some of the stuff was harder to read as well. So there's been a copy circulating of someone who typed it out. So I'm going to read from that just because it's easier to read than me trying to stumble through the written letter. But I will put the written letter up here so that you can see for yourself what it says. So I think we're just going to get into it and read the letter, and then I'll respond to things as we go along and my feelings on things. Clearly you can tell that I'm not happy with it and I don't like it. So let's start reading and we'll go from there. So the first part is essentially him writing a letter to Gabby. And then as we get through to more of the pages, it becomes more addressing everybody else. Gabby, I wish I was right at your side. I wish I could be talking to you right now. I'd be going through every memory we've made, getting even more excited for the future. I can't live without you. I've lost every day we could have spent together. Every holiday. I'll never get to play with, and it says unintelligible. To me, it looked like it was playing with nephews or with Gabby's siblings. Never go hiking with TJ. I loved you more than anything. I can't bear to look at our photos, to recall great times, because it's why I cannot go on. When I close my eyes, I will think of laying on the roof of the van, falling asleep to the sight of a meteor shower at the Crystal Geyser. I will always love you. This part was hard for me because he made the choice to take her life. So by him saying, I won't get to have holidays with you, I won't get to play with these people, I won't get to do this, I won't get to do that, Gabby won't get to do that because you chose to take her life. That was your choice, not Gabby's. If you were reading Gab's journal, looking at the photos from our life together, flipping through old cards, you wouldn't want to live a day without her, knowing that every day you'll wake up without her. You wouldn't want to wake up. I'm sorry to everyone this will affect. Gabby was the love of my life, but I know, adored by many. I'm so very sorry to her family because I love them. I'd consider her younger siblings my best friends. I'm sorry to my family. This is a shock to them as well as a terrible grief. You guys, I'm so mad. I guess to me, talking about looking at their photos and him loving their family, if he truly did, why did you make the decision you made? And there's a letter, you guys get this, and I was going to wait to the end, but this in and of itself makes me upset. There was a letter that Roberta wrote to Brian offering to assist him with Gabby. And I'll put a clip in from the Petito's lawyer, but he didn't expound on all of it. He made a comment about putting a blade or a saw in a cake for him in jail. My assumptions were assist him to take his life in jail, assist him to break out. But the lawyer, when he was questioned about, well, was it to unalive himself? He said, oh, no. It was to assist with Gabby. So I'm really, really interested to see what the rest of that letter is, because it doesn't sound like it's a good one for Roberta. But on the outside of it, it said, burn when you're done. Burn when you're done with this. When you're done reading it, burn it. He didn't burn it. He had it in the van and they took everything out of the van, so when the FBI came, they found it in the house. I don't know at that point why Roberta didn't burn it unless she didn't know that it was there, but it doesn't sound great for her. So I'm a little excited to hear what that part of it is.
Someone should ask him to release the letter that Roberta Laundrie wrote to Brian Laundrie. That on the envelope says, burn after you read this.
So there was a letter from Roberta to Brian within the notebook?
No, it was not within the notebook. It was a separate letter.
That was found out there with the notebook, though?
My understanding is that the letter at one point had been in the van, but then it was taken from the Laundrie home during the time when the search warrant was executed.
So a letter from Roberta to Brian that said, burn this letter after you read it. And were you able to read the letter?
Yes, I was. I'll tell you that I had an idea what was in the letter before I read it. I knew about the letter. I don't believe Mr. Bertolino knew about the letter, and the surprise on his face was very interesting as he read that letter.
That was
all I can say. He has the letter. He has the original of the letter, and I've asked him to maintain that for purposes of the litigation. I don't have a copy of it. I expect I'll be getting a copy of it. He wouldn't allow me to get a copy of it today. But within that letter is an offer from Roberta Laundrie to assist her son I don't want to say more because I don't have the letter, but it's a pretty interesting, pretty odd letter.
So a letter from Roberta to Brian to assist her son, assist him to do what?
Let me back up and say there's no date on the letter. But it would appear that the letter was written between the time that Gabby was murdered and Brian committed suicide. There's scenarios presented by Roberta in that letter. For example, if you go to jail, I'll bake a cake and I'll put a knife in it or a saw in it. There was also something referenced in that letter about Gabby, and I'd rather not go any further. That at this point, the letter will speak for itself, and I don't want to paraphrase incorrectly what the letter said.
I understand. I just want to make sure I can report it correctly. So was she sort of offering to help him kill himself? Is that what you're saying?
No.
Okay.
No. It was as I said, it was an offer that had to do with Gabby.
After she was already dead.
That's my belief.
And you can't say anything more about what that offer was?
I'm not comfortable without having it in front of me because I'll be paraphrasing, and I don't want to paraphrase something that serious.
I've always been of the opinion that the Laundries have not been great people. Period. They loved as much, if not more than me, a new daughter to my mother, an aunt to my nephews. Please do not make this harder for them. This occurred as an unexpected tragedy. That makes me mad. It was not an unexpected tragedy. You chose. You planned to do it. It may have been a spur of the moment thing, but to call it an unexpected tragedy? No, there were other things you could have done to make sure that she was safe. You chose not to do those things. And this is the part where he gets into his story. Rushing back to our car, trying to cross the streams of Spread Creek before it got too dark to see, too cold. Which, these aren't rivers, these are creeks. From all the videos I've seen, and I will put a video of Brian Enton crossing some of the streams. They're not that wide and not that deep. Rushing back to our car, trying to cross the streams of Spread Creek before it got too dark to see, too cold. I hear a splash and a scream. I could barely see. I couldn't find her for a moment, shouted her name. I found her breathing heavily, gasping my name. She was freezing cold. We had just come from the blazing hot national parks in Utah. The temperature had dropped to freezing and she was soaking wet. And this also, I've read through this letter about 20 times and I never noticed this part of it. But him saying that in Utah, the temperature had dropped to freezing and she was soaking wet. In Utah, where they were, in southern Utah, and I'm from Utah, so I know what the temperatures are like in different parts of the state. Southern Utah is a very desert, hot place. It's all sand, red rock. It is hot. It doesn't normally drop to freezing temperatures there. Where they are at, where he's talking about, is at the Grand Teton National Parks, which is not in Utah. It was in August when it's hot outside. So yes, it probably got down to 40 degrees at night. That's not freezing temperatures. Even if she had gotten wet, yeah, it was probably cold, and then getting wet made it a little bit colder, but not freezing to the point where she was freezing to death. So in Utah, the temperature had dropped to freezing and she was soaking wet. I carried her as far as I could go down the stream towards the car, stumbling, exhausted and shocked, when my knees buckled and knew I couldn't safely carry her. I started a fire and spooned her as close to the heat. She was thin, had already been freezing too long. I couldn't, at the time, realize that I should have started a fire first, but I wanted her out of the cold, back to the car. From where I started the fire, I had no idea how far the car might be. From all of the videos, they weren't that far from their car. Brian Enton said he had reception where they found Gabby's body. And I know that there's been points where Brian said he doesn't have a phone, he doesn't have a phone. He had an emergency phone from that Moab stop, as well as Gabby had a phone. The car was close enough that Brian could have ran back to that van and called 911. He could have dragged her. He didn't have to carry her. He could have dragged her to the car. They were that close to the car and saved her life. If he truly loved her, if she was the love of his life, he would have done everything in his power to get her help. If it was my husband, I would have dragged him. And as we get further, there's a point where he says Gabby didn't want him to go to the van because she was worried the fire was going to go out and she was going to freeze to death. If you stayed there in the freezing cold like you say it was, she would have gone anyways. So why not make the choice to try and hurry back to the car so you could possibly save her? And he says she was so thin, but then he says he can't carry her. He said it in a way like she hadn't eaten for weeks and she was so thin and she was so cold. And so I just did everything in my power to try and make her comfortable. From where I started the fire, I had no idea how far the car might be. Only knew it was across a creek. When I pulled Gabby out of the water, she couldn't tell me what hurt. She had a small bump on her forehead that eventually got larger. Her feet hurt, her wrist hurt, but she was freezing, shaking violently. While carrying her, she continually made sounds of pain. Laying next to her, she said little lapsing between violent shakes, gasping in pain, begging for an end to her pain. She would fall asleep and I would shake her awake, fearing she couldn't close her eyes if she had a concussion. She would wake in pain, start the whole painful cycle while furious that I was the one waking her. She wouldn't let me try to cross the creek, thought like me that this fire would go out in her sleep and she'd freeze. I don't know the extent of Gabby's injuries, only that she was in extreme pain. I ended her life. I thought it was merciful. That is what she wanted, but I see now all the mistakes I made. I panicked, I was in shock, but from the moment I decided, took away her pain, I knew I couldn't go on without her. This was not a merciful killing. This was murder. Plain and simple, it was murder. Gabby begging to be out of pain did not mean that she wanted him to strangle her. I don't believe for a freaking second that was something she wanted him to do, and I don't believe that he couldn't have got her to the car or gone to the car and gotten her help. I feel like this was his story trying to make himself look better for doing it. So then why after cover it up? Why call her phone? Why quit answering her family? Why take money out of her bank account? Why drive across the United States in her van? Why not tell her family where the body was? Why the Laundries decided not to say anything? Like the lawyer said, why they couldn't have sent an anonymous phone call telling them where the body was? Why did they have to let them search for 2 weeks before finding the body. And luckily, the YouTube family who found her van, what an amazing time we live in, but crazy that in the middle of nowhere, they got video of her van, and that helped.
On August 27th, 2021, we got camera footage going through the Grand Tetons Park around 6 to 6:30 p.m.
This is at the Spread Creek dispersed camping area. We got there and there was a huge gravel lot, and we decided we wanted to try to drive more toward the back because we had heard the views were better back there. So we were heading back on this long dirt gravel road.
And we came across a white van that had Florida plates, a small white van. We were going to stop and say hi because we're from Florida too, but the van was completely dark. There was nobody there, so we decided to continue on our way.
Yeah, the van looked like it was pretty much kind of abandoned. We figured maybe they were out hiking or they were just chilling inside. There was no doors open. You know, it was just kind of, you know, neat to see a Florida plate, you know, on the other side of the country. It's not something you see all the time.
But we wanted to include this in the video just in any way that we can help and get this out there to be able to find Gabby Petito. So if you could share it, if you know anything, please don't hesitate.
Yeah, as we're coming up on it, we're approaching it up here on the left-hand side. This is most definitely Gabby Petito's Ford Transit van. It's kind of wild, like it's insane a little bit, because we drove past, we actually weren't able to find any sites, and we ended up driving back through, saw it again, but here it is on the left. So. And
I slowed it down so you can possibly see it a little bit better.
But kind of freaky for a late Saturday evening, but we just kind of had a brain fart. Oh my God, there's that van. So if anybody can help, I know the FBI is looking for all the help they can get on the case.
I think they hoped she wouldn't be found. I rushed home to spend any time I had left with my family. I wanted to drive north and let James or TJ kill me, but I wouldn't want them to spend time in jail over my mistake, even though I'm sure they would have liked to. I am ending my life not because of a fear of punishment, but rather because I can't stand to live another day without her. I've lost our whole future together, every moment we could have cherished. And again, he says, I've lost. No, Gabby's lost. You chose that. Gabby's the one that lost out on a future. Gabby's the one that lost out on spending time with her family. You got to go home to mommy and daddy and have them try and figure out a way for you to flee and spend those last couple moments with them. You got to come home and go on vacation with your family before you went and decided to take your own life instead of taking accountability for what you did. Gabby lost out, not you. Gabby's family lost out, not your family. I'm sorry for everyone's loss. Please do not make life harder for my family. They lost a son and a daughter, the most wonderful girl in the world. Gabby, I'm sorry. I've killed myself by this creek in the hopes that animals may tear me apart, that it may make some of our family happy. Please, pick up all of my things. Gabby hated people who littered. You guys. And even that last part of, I killed myself by a creek where there were animals that would tear me apart so that it would make her family happy. Why would that make her family happy? I'm sure her family would have loved for you to pay to sit in jail for the rest of your freaking life and think about what you did. But they're the kind of people that I don't think that would have made them happy. I think they devastated over all of this. I don't think they wanted any of it. They didn't want anything to happen to Gabby. They didn't want anything to happen to Brian. That's not the kind of people that they are. Since then, the Petito lawyer has come out and done a bunch of interviews since the notebook came out. And I'll put part of the interview here. But he said that Bertolino should read the letter that Roberta wrote to Brian, which was the letter I was describing earlier, that said, "Burn me after you read it." And since then, Bertolino's come out and gone, "Oh, that's from a movie. That's a movie title."
Was interesting because Mr. Bertolino, when he responded to the letter to us, said it was a letter from a long time ago before the trip. But like, why would Roberta be talking about jail if this letter was even before their trip? But then I've seen on Twitter some people saying some of this has to do with possibly movie references. So I don't really know what to make of it.
Whatever. The fact that in the letter they alluded to Roberta assisting with Gabby, that's not from a movie. Freaking heck. And he's seen the letter. He just doesn't want to quote things unless he has it straight in front of him so that he can give the full context. On top of that, and this is the biggest thing why I don't believe Brian's story, he said that there are 2 other letters from Brian telling his story, and they're all different.
There are other stories that he told as well. So this isn't the only version.
What do you mean by other stories?
There's at least 1 and possibly 2 other confessions. We don't have them at this point. We just have this one. But my understanding is that there was one on a digital device of some kind, and there may be another writing.
So like something he recorded himself confessing?
Either that or typed it.
Or typed it. Okay. And how do you know that?
Because the FBI told us.
Do you think they'll be different?
From what we were told, they are somewhat different.
And he said they're similar in a sense, but they are not the same. And he thinks that those other versions are the actual story. So it'll be interesting to see when those come out what actually happened. I think, and this is my personal opinion, it's all alleged, I feel like they had so much DV in their relationship and it hit a breaking point. I think that's why Brian went back to Florida, flew back to Florida to try and take a little break to figure things out, and he decided he wanted to go back. I believe then, and this is my own opinion, was when Roberta sent that letter in between those times. And they haven't said whether it was mailed to him or whether she gave him the letter when he went back. They've said that the lawyer said he believed that it was between the time Gabby was killed to the time Brian took his life. So in between that time. So that's why I say I don't know if it was mailed to him. If it wasn't, the only times that make sense to me was when he came back to Florida and went back to be with Gabby, or right when he got back to Florida. But the FBI alleged that the letter was in the van. So that's what makes me feel like it was probably when he came back to Florida, the letter got sent with him. But that's just my own theory, because out there, they were traveling. They didn't have an address to send it to. So that, to me, is the only place that I can see where he would have gotten a letter from his mom. I feel like it was premeditated. That is my own personal opinion. It's all alleged. This is just my own personal opinion. Go do your own research, make your own opinions on things. But I believe that he premeditated it. Then they were out there hiking, probably on their way back, probably got in a fight, is my assumption, and everything went down. He hit her with a rock, which is what the blunt force trauma was. I do not believe she fell in the creek and hit her head, because he said many times it was so dark we couldn't see anything, but then all of a sudden he could see the goose egg on her head and it growing. How does that make any sense? And then I believe that he ended up strangling her there. And then I feel like he covered everything up, tried to, hoping that her being out there, the animals would pick apart her body and nobody would find her. That is my feelings on everything. But I am interested to see what all of the other letters say. And it makes it kind of hard knowing that there's 3 letters and they're all similar, but they're all different, to know what really is true. There's also been speculation going around that he wasn't the one to write the letter, which people have alleged that it was Roberta. I haven't seen Roberta's handwriting. To me, that would be interesting to see. To look through her letter that she wrote to Brian and that letter to see if the two match up. I mean, the fact that they went out to search for Brian after a month, 6 weeks, I believe it was 6 weeks after that long of time searching for him, and they found him in 30 minutes. 30 minutes after millions of dollars were spent just makes me feel like his family had a part of it. And it's all alleged, but that's what I think. I don't think they were staying silent because they didn't want to get their son in trouble. I think they were involved in more ways than one, and they knew that if they said anything, it would incriminate them. That is my own personal feeling, and again, it's all alleged. But yeah, what do you guys think? Are you as ticked off as I am? Do you believe the story? Do you not believe his story? Tell me what you guys think in the comment section down below. I love chatting with you guys, so being able to have constructive conversations in the comment section is my favorite. So comment down below. Please, no mean comments. Be nice to everybody. And yeah, like this video, subscribe, and hopefully soon I can get the full Gabby Petito story up. I've been waiting to do it, but then things keep coming up with the Johnny Depp trial and then with this, that I haven't had a chance to do a full video on it. But I will do a video on it, so those of you that haven't heard the whole case, you can go back and watch those videos. So until next time, we'll see you later. Bye.
Wanted to get it right, trying to find some balance in my life. I never really put up a fight, and now I'm losing sleep. What if I lost touch? What if I'll never get it right? I try to follow my heart, but I lost it somehow. Wish that someone could say it'll all be okay. Just listen to me as I say